Well, we haven't got week one yet, and we've already got a lot of things occurring. Hope this is not going to be how the rest of the season goes. Well, this is we haven't got to the season one. By the way, all the game. This is episode 3 of Sports Hour, and we haven't even got to first week. First game officially occurs. I'm going to get the school sheets and turn this down, please. Get rid of that. I'm going to close that down. Thank you. All right, so we haven't even got through week 1 yet. Right, week 1 games hasn't even started yet, and we have several hits. First off, the big news is the Panthers have decided to sit 3 of the rookies. Sorry, start 3 of the rookies, not sit. They've exchanged some things out, so they're going to have a slightly lower rating, a 94 overall rating, versus what their total overall rating before was 95. Now, granted, this is not going to change anything going on to the sync, but they've decided to go ahead and start Elia Holm, Sam Jr., Liberty, who was already planned to be started anyways, and they've also decided to start Sam Jr. So, to be honest, the Panthers, they have won probably the toughest game of the week. To start off, they got to play the Werewolves in week 1, which is the game of the week, and it's supposed to be one of the closest games of all time. Now, granted, they have about a 94 at this point overall rating. Now, granted, they're not going to change overall, and the prediction is still going to be felt 4-point spread. But with this prediction, I got to go more in favor of the Werewolves in this game because of the fact that the Panthers are deciding to sit some of their starters to start week 1. And they've decided to go ahead and sit Kelly Green and Dominic Green, not for any particular reason there, as far as I can know. The manager contacted us today, and he did not say there was any specific reasons for not starting them. They were not injured. They have not been cut from the team, or were not pertaining to because they're not being penalized in any way. This is the interesting fact because the Greens over the past 7 seasons, all of you guys probably aren't aware of this, they were the best players on the team for the defensive side. Now, granted, they're starting 5 defensive players, 2 of them pretty well experienced, and one of them's decently experienced, and then we have 3 fairly inexperienced players. One of them who has only been here 1 year, and then 2 of them who have never played in a game before. They're starting this week, and this I think will make the difference between the Panthers winning this game or losing this game. As of right now, I had already predicted them to be, winning this game by like 4 points. But with all of that, I have to go with the Werewolves winning this game now. I'm not changing any of the predictions for this. I did predict the Panthers were going to win this one, but I think the Werewolves have a much better shot of winning this game now because they started to start certain players. If you go back to the roster, the Werewolves, to be honest, they don't even have a reason to start anyone else. I mean, they got Dorothy Vol, and Dorothy Vol will probably play in some games in place of one of their defensive backs. But it doesn't mean anything for them. With that being said, I think the Werewolves will probably win this game. It will be very close, and with all of the units, because the Panthers are starting rookies, the Panthers that never played before, it doesn't make any sense to me. Now earlier yesterday, Stephanie Williams, I believe it is. That has his name? Ravens. David Robbins, the team captain, he apparently sprained his ankle yesterday, so he will not be playing at least for week 1. And incredibly, that probably means the Ravens have a much worse chance of winning the game. They currently have an 86.7. They've actually improved with that somehow. Either that or I don't know how this works. I think it's an 87.2. With all this, it was 84, so it probably improved a little bit. It was probably 80. It was probably an 87 before, but with Stephanie Robbins being out this season, this is going to change the game for that rent. The Ravens, I actually have predicting winning this game by approximately 2 points against the Ethan. That was my prediction to this, but with Stephanie Robbins being out, being one of the best players of this game, of the best player on the Ravens, it's very likely, I think, that the Ravens will probably lose this game because they've lost him. Now, granted, he'll probably only be out for a week or so, but that's pretty big for them to lose that player. And I don't think it's going to be very easy for this one. I'm going to actually change. I think, honestly, with this case, Ravens are going to probably still win that game, but I think it's going to go to overtime and be tied at some point. It'll be 1 point. I think it'll be a 1-point game instead. Now, this is the big thing going on here is that the Lightning have chosen to sit Sam. Lightning here, it's fun. Lightning should be over here. Lightning have chosen to sit Sam Darkwood, one of the better players of the team. According to this, there were possibilities that he got exposed to COVID during hits, so he's being checked out. There is a possibility he will still play on Monday, but he is at this moment out of the game, which probably does lower the overall a little bit. That goes down to 88, so it goes about half a point, which does mean that they are still going to be very inexperienced and don't have very good chances. They play the Dragons week one, which is already, I think, honestly, going to be a blowout for them. They're going to probably lose that game by a long shot. But I think it's going to be a very interesting combat still. I think it's still going to be a very close game to start off the game. But in the end, I think the Lightning will be crushed in that game. I think they're going to lose by 25 points, is what I'm thinking. So it's going to be a very, very poor game for them. As for instance, we had a few other injuries that occurred. Throughout the Hannah Orman, although I don't think Hannah Orman got injured, she is not expected to play. According to that, where did he have it to her? Yeah, so apparently she tore her ACL, so she might be out the entire game. We don't have very much information about that, but she may be out for the entire season at this point. They're going to take her to the doctors tomorrow or sometime this week before the game and determine if it is a torn ACL. It may not be a torn ACL, so that's just what we have right now. Stephen Roberts got injured for spraining his ankle. He will probably be out for this week and maybe next week. And last but not least, Paul Ribber is out. And he will be out for sure. Here. And broke his hand managing some sort of thing earlier this last week. And so he will be out during at least for this game, might be even for several games. Now, granted, he probably actually helps the Lions a little bit if he's not playing, because the fact that their overall does technically increase to 90, but it probably doesn't help much. The Lions play I gotta find where the Lions play. Who Lions play the UNC. I think the UNC is still gonna have a hard time winning that game, so it's gonna be a Lions win. Final prediction. Basically, this is now the final things for then. I will expect that the Dolphins do end up winning against the Dogs. Nothing gets really changed for that game. I still predict that the Dogs will lose that game. However, I think looking at where it's going to work with the Dolphins didn't change anything. They didn't have any injuries or anything like that. The Dogs will win that game if it goes to overtime. Dogs have been better in overtime overall. They've actually won 3 games in the last 3 seasons that went in overtime. Grant, 2 of those were against the Saints, and that's because they happened to play them twice last year. And then the previous year they went to overtime and won. But it was by penalty, so it was a little bit off that. But I do think the Dolphins are going to have a much better chance of winning that game. It will, I think, if it does tie, the Dogs will win that game. UNC and Lions, I don't really have much to say about this game. The Lions, although they did take a blow with losing Paul, I don't think it's much of a difference. He was not going to play most of the game anyways, or he wasn't going to play. If he was going to play, he wasn't going to play the entire game. It's more important that Samantha Bishop stays healthy and Nata Suzona stays healthy as well, and then the defense back in also Stamas will stay healthy, and hopefully as long as Kate Hightower and Samuel Cross, who got signed during this offseason, he was on the Panthers. He got he got traded for a second-round pick to the Lions, and hopefully with that, he will be improved for a slightly better chance. I think this is still going to be a Lions' favor, but it's going to be very tough for this game. As for the Cardinals and Falcons, Cardinals have had their fair share of wins and losses throughout their season. I mean, they've had some good. They had 2 good years, and then they've had some bad. They've had 2 bad years. If you look at the last couple of years, they have not done great over the last 2 years. I think this year they will have a hard time beating the Falcons in the end, but it will be a win for them. I think. I'm not off this. That's going to be my predictions for this. The Athens and Ravens is still going to be a game. I think the Ravens are going to win that game still, although I think it will be a little bit closer since the Ravens did lose a player, so they won't have as many options during that time period. As for the Giants, Jets, and Colts, Giants and Jets and Giants, I do not think there's anything about that's going to change. I think the Jets are still going to win that game by a long shot. I mean, with the possibilities. However, there is been a little bit of a rumor for the Jets that they may sign a point guard to the team before the signing deadline, which is week 3. And then in week 3, it's the end of the last game, week 3, technically. They basically can't. They are supposedly going to sign a point guard. They've only got 3 point guards right now. Of course, they have the team captain as well. They are looking at possibly signing a player. I don't know if they will or if they. To be honest, they probably do not need to. Alex Forma, if they have a point guard, they probably should put Alex Forma back on the team. Now, for anyone who didn't notice, the players that are crossed out are players that are currently injured, and that means they won't play at least one game. Now, if they come back from injury, they will be fine. Going back through this, the Colts and Indians, I think the Colts still have what it takes to beat the team. I don't see much else happening with that team. But it's just the Indians are still going to struggle. Now, maybe we'll find out they'd be really, really good, and maybe some of the players are really underrated. And I think in that regard, the Indians will have a good chance in this game, but I do not think they'll win. As for the Browns and Pirates, I don't see much happening in this game. I think Pirates are still going to crush the Browns over time. However, I do think it might be a little bit closer than I predicted. I think I predicted 15 points, and no, I predicted 16. But I do predict that it will be a very close game for most of the game. Then it'll be crushing at the end. Bengals and Knights, not much to say about this game. I don't think there's anything increased. No injuries, no hits, no signing, no profits, or anything like that. So I think the Knights will still lose this game, and that would be a Sunday at 4. Texans Saints. I think the Saints will start off with a much better game this season. I think they will beat the Tex, although this will be a very close game. As long as they don't go into overtime, like the Saints have done for, they did 6 times last season and lost and tied 6 times and then lost the other 2 games that they went to the overtime with. I think this will be a very close game in the end. I think because the defense of the Tex will be what stops or what makes it difficult for the Saints. Although both teams have a very good defense, it will be interesting to see. I think the Saints offense will slightly do better over time. As for the Bengals and the Knights, I think Bengals are going to still crush that game. I don't think there's anything to talk about in that one because Bengals are still the 3rd or 4th best team in the NBL right now. As for the Packers and Westville, Packers should still win that game. However, I think it's still going to be a very close game. Packers are not exactly the best team overall. Although I will say the Westville might be surprising to us. Westville, over the last couple of years has struggled last 3 years. 2 games, and they have not made the playoffs last. They have not made the playoffs ever in their career in their time being here, but they have been really close in 4 years ago, which was 2017. This is 2022. They skipped 2021 because of COVID and everything like that, so that won't happen. That didn't happen. And we have Otters and Bobcats. Otters and Bobcats will be a tough game overall. Otters, I think, are going to have much better time of doing it, of getting better. I think Otters have a much better overall. They have a better defense. They have a slightly better offense. And with that, I do think that the Otters will beat the Bobcats. Although I think in the end, this will be a back and forth game. Most of the time, Ours will win by, I think I have them by 7 points. So it's very close. I think it'll be a very close game in the end. Tigers and Angels. Angels have, I think, a very good chance of winning this game, but with the Tigers having a better offense, I think the offense is going to be what makes them be better overall. We have the Dragons and Lightning. I think that's going to be a tough game, especially. But here's the thing: I think it's going to be now with the Dragon Lightning game occurring. They've lost some players. The Dragons have lost. With the Dragons Dragons didn't lose anybody. The Lightning, if they should probably put back these two players back onto the list, because here's the thing. They've decided to sit Sam Darkwood, which is not finalized, but it is likely to happen. I think Sam Darkwood should be put back on this game. Perhaps they don't want to risk him early in the season, especially since they're starting against the Dragons. Panthers and Lightning game, Panthers and Werewolves game will be a problem for the Panthers and Werewolves. They play on Saturday at 1:30. Okay, as the game of the week. The problem with the Panthers starting their rookies that's what's going to be a problem, I think, in the end. Panthers still, I think, are going to win this game, but I think the Werewolves have a much better chance of winning this game now that the Panthers have sat some of their starters and put some rookies back into play. And this is the worst game they could have done this with, to be honest. They should have waited until they had a better shot next week. And next week they play, I have to check and see what week, this won't be bad, but next week they play a much easier game against the Indians. So this has been a whole much better to give a start. They should have started their starters, figure out what everything's going up, and then next week they should have started some of their rookies. Perhaps for even 2 weeks, because of the fact that, never mind, the Panthers play the Dragons in week 3. So, to be honest, this is probably the worst game they could have done it with. Now, granted, they might have some good starts and great players. The rookies might be, the reason they win all the games in the season, considering the Panthers have done really well over the last couple of years. They've actually done really well. They've won the Ball Bowl last 4 years. They lost 2 of their big players this last season, though, so they will not have those players this season. That might change everything. We'll find out what happens throughout the season, and honestly, I think this is going to be a very interesting first game. I don't see much else happening with the season. I mean, we had some losses. We had some players that went down and out. It would be interesting through this season that if the Panthers will have what it takes, the questions I will say, the Panthers have what it takes to win without any of their starters. I think also be interesting to say if the Ravens actually win their game when they've lost one of their best players. Lightning seeing Stars might not be the biggest decision since they don't play. I think they'll still lose that game, and that's going to be a big problem for that. And this is the reason why I think that's going to happen. Sam Darnold, not Sam Darnold, Sam Darkwood is one of the better players on that team. But by sitting him down, sitting him out of the game, they might want to see some of their good players. They probably, I think, although this is not finalized still, they might put in one of their rookies like Anna Graves or one of their latest experience, Anna Graves or Clay Dixon, who got signed this year, or Anna Graves who didn't play much last year. In fact, she was told 260 points, 150. It wasn't even close. It was 150 points, and that was a huge loss for them because Anna Graves did not play much last season, partly because I think she had COVID at a certain point during the season, so she might have missed a couple games. This is going to be a big week to decide. Final things for this before I end the thing here. My predictions. Dragons. My 3 predictions for this week. Dragons crush Lightning, which is honestly not a big deal, by 30 points. That might not be happening. I will say my upset for this week would be the Werewolves beat the Panthers by 1. I think it's what's going to end up happening. And finally, final prediction for this week is that the Bengals get demolished in the first 3 quarters and then win by 24 or by a big amount. And then the Knights are going to win out early and they're going to lose really a game, which is what happens most times in the Knights. So thank you guys for watching Sports Hour episode number 3. Big predictions will be happening throughout the season. The next episode for Sports Hour will occur next Monday. Okay, probably won't be uploaded until Tuesday, but it'll be Monday or Tuesday, and then I will let you guys know what happened in that game, and there will be another episode on Thursday, which will tell you what happens for that week. Thank you guys for listening, and if you have not put your teams in, go and put those into the comments below. Any of these videos, there will be a link to the first video if you guys want to see that one, what happened to these seasons. Of course, this one's the big main ones. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode of Sports Hour.